they oversold the stock by like 200%. So you could have 100% of the shares, but they shorted it. They sold a whole bunch of shares to short the stock to the tune of 200 odd percent, almost 300%, I think. And then now they can't close the short position because it's too expensive to do. So I think that's interesting. So we're going to look at a lot of color on that. I think that's a dipstick into how fake everything else is. And I think everything else is fake too. War drums beat for Russia, or manipulated. Fake is not the right word. Manipulated, right? It's a managed system. We think it's an open system that responds to market conditions, and it's not actually an open system that responds to market conditions. It is a manipulated system. That's what I meant by fake. War drums beat for Russia, but also we buy a lot of fertilizer from Russia. So it's weird. It's a little weird. And how much is the government making on carbon taxes? Billions. Not as much as we send to Ukraine, but you know, a lot of money, right? Lots and lots of money they make on carbon taxes. Lots to get to. Did I already say that? Let's get to it. First, we're starting with Pierre Poilievre. He says, is he hallucinating when he says this? Justin Trudeau warning, this whole series is about this sales pitch, this full-blown sales pitch onto, listen, kids, we're going to tax your parents and take their money and give it to you, wink, through a capital gains tax. And fundamentally, I've said before, if you have to explain something 3 hops, you've lost somebody. If you have to go, okay, understand this, now understand this, now understand this, now here's the thing that I want to tell you about, you're going to lose a lot of people. It's like a heating system. For every elbow joint, you've lost some efficiency, right? Okay, so Mike's Money Talks is responding to Daryl. Daryl says, good example of a political maxim. If you're explaining, you're losing. If it requires a 3-minute plus video to explain a problem only experts think exists, it's unlikely to move hearts and minds, especially when a parade of cottage owners, seniors, small business owners beg to differ, and doctors, and so on and so forth. So Justin Trudeau launches on this 3-minute long tirade. The first part of this explains how investors, or somebody making $800,000 a year, is able to buy assets, and those assets become a second income for those investors. So he's creating us and them situation in his explanation here. Us, the people who work for $150,000 and make a pretty good living. Them, people who work for $800,000 a year and buy assets, okay? And you should always be buying assets if you can, or like buying something that you can make into an asset. Anyway, I digress. Assets become valuable, and then Justin Trudeau just wants to tax those assets. He's not going to tax you. He's ignoring the idea, though, that houses cost $1 million now. Like, it's well over that $250,000 threshold. So there's a lot of problems with his misleading rhetoric here. We're going to go through some of it. I'm going to jump around because I don't want to listen to all of it. But I've explained the first part of the video a little bit, and then we'll jump to the second part of the video. Here we go.
This is a tax policy change.
Too fast, Mark P. Too fast. Come on. Here it is.
It's less than 1% of people, but look at how much attention it's getting.
He repeats this as well. That's said more than once in this video, that the tax system that he's suggesting and implementing here only affects less than 1% of people, 1.13% of people, so says Justin Trudeau. But doctors have spoken up. Housing, real estate is much more expensive than it was before. All of these things are playing into Justin Trudeau is not telling people the truth of this. He's misleading people with this.
Some people don't think that the richest few should pay more in taxes. Well, I don't agree with that. At a time when
I think that no citizens of the country should pay taxes. I think you should probably have a levy on companies that want your citizens as customers, right? And then bingo, bango, bongo, the tax is paid by the company, and probably some of the cost is pushed on to the consumer, but the consumer doesn't see that tax. It's kind of an invisible tax that's put on them by the company anyway. But the company would gladly pay the tax to access the consumer, right? Like this is how the United States was planning on doing things to avoid taxes, I think. Anyway, income taxes are unnecessary. And Justin Trudeau is ideologically not aligned with me at all. He says, oh yeah, well, I think the richest should pay taxes. I don't think anybody should pay taxes. Like, we have a situation where the government can't deliver the services that it's supposed to deliver with the taxes we pay for the service. So if the government can't deliver the damn program, have you seen the potholes? Then they shouldn't get the money. Obviously, we should figure out a way to contract private people to get this job done because the government's failing, right? It's ridiculous. Oh yeah, the most rich should pay more for these inefficiencies that the government wants to hand out. 40% bloat on the bureaucratic public service? No, I don't want to pay for that, you idiot. Anyway, I'm going to jump forward. He's talking about, you know what, I maybe shouldn't have. He's talking about, I'll just put it back here, and he's setting up his us versus them.
Just are only getting richer. I think it's fair to ask those people to pay a little more. You may have heard of the capital gains tax, or what some people call the capital gains tax advantage. Now, if you don't know what that is, you probably don't get that advantage.
Us versus them.
It's basically where you've made enough money and amassed enough wealth in assets that you end up getting a tax break. Here's what I mean. Everybody pays taxes on 100% of their salary. If a nurse is making $70,000 a year, or an investment banker has a salary of $800,000 a year, when it comes to paying income taxes, they're both paying taxes on all of that income. Now, that nurse may be living a good life, but she's...
So the banker gets assets, and then he's got this tax advantage that he's trying to sell. Here he is talking about like the advantage, and he goes after people who are making a specific amount and are over a specific age, right? Over 1.4 million and 60 years old. Here we go.
And it's not really fair. So we're going to change that. Starting June 25th, if someone makes up to $250,000 in capital gains, they're still going to pay taxes on only half of that. But for anything they make over $250,000, they're going to pay a little more. They'll pay taxes on 2/3 of that. So the very richest people are going to profit a little less off their assets. Only 0.13% of Canadians, to be exact. These are people who have an average income of $1.4 million a year and are mostly in their 60s or older.
You know what I would do if I was a 60-year-old millionaire who had assets in Canada? I'd sell them and move. Like, are you kidding me right now? Oh, I'm just going to pay a little more? Actually, Justin, I'm going to call up my financial advisor. I'm going to call up my financial guy. I'm going to say, dump all the Canadian nonsense, move everything you have to into foreign currencies, into whatever else, and tell Justin, send a note to Justin Trudeau that just says the letters F and U. Thanks. Like, this is not going to happen. This guy's delusional. And then he goes through and talks about the things that he wants to do with the money. Here's what he wants to do with the money. I know I dislike listening to Justin Trudeau as well, but this is what he wants to use these new taxes for.
So why am I telling you this if the vast majority of you won't pay $1 more? Well, for two reasons. First, the conversation always seems to be dominated by the richest people in a society. This is a tax policy change that impacts less than 1% of people, but look at how much attention it's getting.
Same as the beginning.
And second, you should care about your tax system. This change to the capital gains tax will result in almost $20 billion in new revenue that will go towards the biggest investment in housing in Canadian history. Revenue that will create a national school food program, that will make prescription contraception and insulin available for anyone who needs it, that'll build a national dental care program. See, a fair system creates...
Why does he need the money? Why doesn't he just print the money? Right? We could print the money and send $60 billion to Ukraine. Why can't we print the money and print the $8 or $9 billion we need for this? Right? It doesn't make any sense to me. So if you have to do a 3-minute long explainer video, people are not with you on this whole thing. Joe Warmington says, Trudeau declares class war, redistributes wealth from rich to others. So rich to foreigners, it seems. Quote from the article, he may be calling it fairness for every generation, but what Prime Minister Trudeau describes in a video sales pitch for his new capital gains tax is wealth redistribution from the rich to everybody else. And IC Crap Daily says it's not wealth redistribution, it's outright theft by attacking generational wealth transfer. It's the most basic building blocks of societal improvement, the ability to give your family a step up by either passing property or a business to the next generation. Justin Trudeau's proposing communism, full-blown communism. And I agree. I think it's dangerous and we shouldn't be doing it. Brian Lilly says, remember when Justin Trudeau said he was working for the middle class and those working hard to join it? Now he's attacking the middle class, starting a class and age war and calling it fairness. Read Joe Warmington on Trudeau's pitch to make you poorer. Yes, here's the piece in the Toronto Star by Joe Warmington. It says, he may be calling it a fairness for everyone, every generation, but what Prime Minister Trudeau describes in a video sales pitch for his new capital gains tax is wealth distribution from the rich to everybody else. Some people don't think that the richest few should pay more, blah, 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 while wearing a white t-shirt and tie with his sleeves rolled up while seated on a white couch. Well, I don't agree with that. It's socialism being sold to a Canadian public who can't vote on it until 2025 at the earliest. Trudeau, who is supposed to represent everybody from all walks of life, ages, and economic positions, was taking the us and them approach. It was a Robin Hood speech to take from those who have and dole it out to those who don't through expensive cradle-to-grave style social programs. It's political division, and he's reminding one of his references to flat earthers or anti-vaxxer mobs or people who are racist, misogynist, or against science. This time, Trudeau said, in an era where the richest are only getting richer, I think it's fair to ask those people to pay a little more. This time, he put private sector financial professionals against public sector professionals, and at one point drew a line under people in their 60s as the ones holding the cash. It's just code words for taking from the baby boom generation and handing it to Gen Z or millennials who, thanks to the World Economic Forum style economics, own nothing and are not happy. So yeah, people are frustrated and pissed off, and we, the taxpayer, are paying for Justin Trudeau to promote this disastrous financial policy that harms Canada and doesn't help Canada. We've got Mona Fortin, Ahmed Hassan, Stephen Guilbeault, Chrystia Freeland, all putting similar tweets out talking about helping or asking the rich to pay a little more so the Liberals can help you. And they say this is fairness for every generation, except the generation being stolen from, except the generation being told, listen, we're going to take your house and your money and give it to these guys here. No, they didn't grow up in Canada. No, they didn't pay any taxes into this country, but you're going to pay for them anyway. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. I think that's basically how that goes. So the convoy, there's some news about the convoy. Holly Doan is reporting access to information records uncovered by MP Arnold V show cabinet waited until after invoking the emergency powers against the Freedom Convoy to seek advice from Crown prosecutors. Wow, that seems like a pretty big bombshell. Where are the headlines? Eva Chipik is responding to this. She says, so the Prime Minister did not get advice from the Crown Prosecutor and no request from police authorities before invoking the Emergency Act? He and his supporters lied to invoke the Emergencies Act? Who is the lawless one, the Prime Minister and friends, or the people? The Prime Minister. This is a communist takeover. Understand that. When you understand that, everything else makes sense, I think. And I've been saying it for a while. Cosman is reporting the RCMP has publicly released its Freedom Convoy internal review, and it's damning for the Liberals. Officers complained of heavy political pressure, ministers manipulating intelligence for their own ends, and discomfort, the poor dears over the Emergencies Act. Now, I read this article. Hold on, we'll get there in just a second. Daniel Bulford says RCMP passing the buck in their report now that evidence lands in the convoy's favor. If it felt wrong, why'd you go along with it? So here's the article. I read through the article. It talks about how the police were really worried and they felt pressured and they didn't want to do the mean things they were doing, basically. Except that there's video footage of police on horseback trampling protesters. There's video footage of police assaulting people, pulling people out of cars, breaking car windows. There's video footage of these police officers and clips of their text messages talking about these protesters as if they're some subhuman and as if they deserve to be treated badly. And so I have a really hard time going through this and feeling any kind of sympathy, which is what they're trying to garner with this kind of article, right? So I thought it was interesting because it made me, like, here's a quote. Responders felt it was unclear what impact the invocation of the Emergencies Act had on police response and police authorities. Furthermore, some respondents expressed they felt uncomfortable applying the peace officer authorities granted once the Emergencies Act was invoked, as they did not feel that they had clear understanding of those authorities. So maybe you should have stood down. Maybe you should have said no, right? That might have been powerful, right? That might have been timely, right? Back to this, some responders who were deployed in the National Capital Region also indicate they felt uncomfortable enforcing certain legislation because the police of jurisdiction did not appear to be taking enforcement action. Yeah, well, I mean, like, is it your responsibility to point out that officers were assaulting citizens, that they were pulling people out of their cars, that they were doing all these things? Or, you know, the blue line must be maintained, right? Not all police officers were guilty, but there were a damn lot of them who were just following orders, comrade, right? So is that good or bad? So it seems off to me to cast the police in the victim's light and say, well, the ministers were the ones who were manipulating the data, et cetera, et cetera. I think we need to have all of everything very, very transparent. Who were those men who didn't have badges and who were in fatigue greens and had semi-automatic or fully automatic guns and weapons and things like that? So I have a lot of questions that are not answered, and they're trying to drip out little bits like, oh, we felt bad about this, and you know, the ministers are doing that, but we don't have a robust, full understanding of what happened. And because we don't have a robust, full understanding of what happened, including all communications between cabinet, privileged information or not, all of that, or cabinet confidence or anything like that, in order to get to the bottom of this, all of that needs to be investigated, because it seems like there are people who are lying here. It seems like there are people who are trying to turn the public opinion one way or another without all the information, so the public just forgets and moves along and doesn't ask questions. But I have way too many questions for this to be even like 25% sure about what happened, right? And they invoked the Emergencies Act. They committed violence. They lied about it. In doing that, they brought violence to that protest, which was peaceful up till that point, regardless of what Sexy Lee said. And so no consequences for them. Pat King, and here's where we're at in this tab now. Right Blend says, I'm here at the Ottawa courthouse to cover day one of the Pat King trial. Pat King has opted for a judge alone trial. The trial is taking place at the Ontario Superior Court of Justice. We will be in courtroom 34 today. Pat King is presumed innocent. He has the right to a fair and impartial trial. I'll do my best to cover the proceedings and bring you the most accurate, relevant, and insightful updates possible. Follow this thread for real-time reporting from the courtroom. So they have these situations where people who have committed violent crimes like assault and whatever, not enough judges in Toronto, so those get dismissed, right? But Pat King, who led some, was a road captain, and like, I don't even think he was a central part of the organization of this. He was just a thorn in the side of the authorities, and they wanted him gone. Do you know how many people reached out to me, and some genuinely just wanting to see me if I was going to be in Ottawa, which is cool. But there was a lot of people who were, and like people I'd never talked to before, people who, not that I wouldn't talk to, but like weren't in my circles. I hadn't seen them. I hadn't noticed them. I hadn't talked to them before or had any real interaction with them before, or any of their friends, like people who completely unknown to me. Now that happens sometimes. It's organic because I do my show and people hear about me and they want to talk to me, and fine, whatever. And that's fine. And I enjoyed engaging with people like that, and it's fine. But these people seemed different in that they were really pushy and wanting me to come to Ottawa. And I immediately thought, like, this is, if you do something, if I do something, if I say something or whatever that could be interpreted in the wrong way and get arrested, that's going to have lasting negative consequences. And it seems like they're gunning for people. And they had papers with people's pictures, and they were distributed around the officers who were policing that protest, and they were targeting people, right? Like, it's pretty wild stuff. It's pretty crazy stuff. So I don't know, man. There's a whole lot wrong with what's going on. Even when we get good news like this, it seems like we don't have nearly enough information to accurately make a decision and move forward, right? And I mean, like, obviously, I think we're being lied to, and I think that the government that's in place currently, and I mean that from every MP and MPP and premier, mayor, city council person, everybody who's been selected by our crooked electoral system, I feel, is not working for Canadians, but is actually working for some foreign entity, be they globalists, the United Nations, the WHO, whoever it is. They're not working for us. And so I think the only real solution is to get rid of them and start over with an entirely new election, but I don't know how to secure it. So, and I mean, most of Canada would have to agree with me. So And it would be difficult to implement that solution, I think, because at this point in time, well, the government is the government and they're in charge, right? So that's a sticking point, right? That's a block. So how do we fix that problem? Seems very big. Seems very big. Ian. So this guy is he does financial stuff. He does digs on finances and things like that. And he's talking about GameStop. GameStop is a situation where some intrepid detectives realized that there were some weird things going on with the stock market, and they guessed that they were selling more stocks than they owned. You can only sell 100% of stocks, right? Like if you own a company, if you own Sony, you can only own 100% of Sony. You can't own 200% of Sony. But they were selling 200% of Sony, but in this case GameStop, and they were short selling GameStop. So what they were doing was you could operate in the 100% stock area, and that's the public market, let's just say, okay? And then if you wanted to short them, you could buy extra shares to short them. And they tried to destroy GameStop, but they couldn't destroy GameStop. They shorted GameStop, and GameStop just getting more popular because it became a meme stock. Everybody said, buy GameStop and hold. Buy it and hold and screw these short position people, because these short position people are they're going to have to cover their losses. It's going to be real expensive, and it's going to be funny to do this, so let's do this. So they did it, right? Reddit has the power, 4chan has the power to do that, or they used to have the power to do that. 4chan has unbelievable reach. And maybe they don't as much now, but in like 2014, blah, 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 they had some crazy reach. And now those people who were doing memes, capture the flag against Shia LaBeouf in 2014 are buying stocks in 2023, right? And they're buying GameStop, and they're holding to screw the short sellers. And they've screwed the short sellers. 100% they screwed the short sellers. But what's happening now is this guy is explaining they're just lying through their teeth to maintain the fake narrative that they've put up to protect themselves from being caught out on selling too many stocks. So here's Ian to explain some of this. I'm going to jump around. We're going to listen to maybe a little bit at the beginning, and then we're going to jump to the 2-minute mark, and then you should watch the whole video because the whole video is really interesting. And it's even a smaller part of a larger video. He's good. I like his stuff. His mustache, man. I should grow a mustache. My dad has a mustache. I don't know if I could pull off my dad's mustache. Like, I couldn't do it. My dad is OG mustache guy. Okay, here's this guy's mustache. I mean, this guy's information.
We're about to watch the media lie through their teeth like their life depends on it. That's because Roaring Kitty just came back and GameStop broke the internet. And then this morning it broke the stock market. And it turns out that GameStop investors are everywhere. So I'm gonna catch you up on everything they've been hiding from you for 3 years that we dug up. First and foremost, we learned that all mainstream media is just the propaganda arm of the big money trying to short this company. Just a small collection of articles regurgitating that you need to forget GameStop. Surprise! And today the lies have already started. They are trying to smear Keith Gill as though he drove the meme stock mania. We'll talk about this whole meme stock word in a second. But first, let's remember.
Okay, so we're going to fast forward a little bit to the meme stock stuff, because the meme stock, I was reading an article yesterday and I saw this meme stock thing and I thought, what? Meme stock? What is a meme stock? How is this? Have they got a new classification? What is this? It's just a trick of the light. It's just a psyop to get you to think that it's something different. It's nothing different. They're just manipulating it. The meme stocks are the stocks that they're manipulating because they have the attention of something like Reddit, and they have to manipulate it, otherwise they'll lose, right? And they'll lose control of the whole game, right? If their fantasy becomes broken. So here he continues.
Market mechanics. And then they colluded behind the scenes about turning off payment because they couldn't have afforded to. What they actually did is they committed crime in front of all of us, turned off the buy button, shuffled a bunch of things around, never bought back in because they couldn't have afforded to cover those positions. We're talking at least hundreds of billions of dollars worth of losses. Had that all played out according to actual market mechanics. And then they colluded behind the scenes about turning off payment for order flow brokers like Robinhood. Allegedly. But now let's talk about this term meme stocks, right? You know, the word they invented to describe all these stocks that act really weird, obviously all because of you buying because of social media. You and your $20 totally moves markets. And then they use that term meme stock to sort of precondition your mind when they're reporting on it to think of them as some special type of stock. And then they lie to you by telling you things like have been in a persistent and largely uninterrupted decline. Yeah, persistent and largely uninterrupted, except for that day and that day and that day and that day. See, what this term meme stock refers to is a basket of highly manipulated stocks that are all tied together through very complex financial things behind the scenes that for a long time the GameStop community was only speculating about until out of nowhere one day, this firm called Archegos, run by Bill Hwang, just blew the fuck up. Basically imploded overnight on billions and billions of dollars worth of trades. And when we started to analyze why he blew up, it's because he was trading all kinds of meme stocks and other investments in swap baskets back and forth, using all these super complex derivatives to hide the value of his true positions. So the counterparties he was trading with didn't know how much risk he had open, and the SEC didn't know what the hell was going on. And you got to remember, markets take, like, these trades take a long time to move. Like, a lot of these things are one-year contracts, multi-year contracts. And so, you know, the GameStop play was never gonna be short. And when Bill Hwang blew up, it took a whole year before his counterparty, Credit Suisse, had to pay the bill. And they couldn't. So Credit Suisse blew up. They are no more. UBS was forced to take on Credit Suisse. I don't think they wanted to. Now UBS needs a bailout. This is from what? April of 2024? Yeah. Keep UBS in your prayers. They're going to need it. And they don't just hide these things with swaps. They also short ETFs and do all sorts of shady ETFs.
Okay, do you see how this is contagious? Do you see how this them shorting these stocks, and it's not just GameStop, but that's just one to show you the problem. This is the structural problem with it. They've shorted these stocks. They don't have the money to close out their positions. They're screwed, so they have to change the rules of the game to favor them and to screw the people who are, if you were using the regular mechanics of the system, would have been rich, right? If it all played out the way it's supposed to play out. But it can't, because if it plays out the way it's supposed to play out, then everybody goes bankrupt because there's not enough money in anywhere to cover the open positions. You see? I hope you see. So pretty crazy stuff, right? Maybe that stock market thing. The reset is going to be a stock market crash. But I mean, could it be? I don't know. Because I don't necessarily think so, because people are going to still be productive if the stock market crashes. Like, people are still going to make things, right? So anyway, we'll see how all of that plays out. Blacklock's reporter is reporting MP Blake D complains House committee holds too many meetings into $60 million ArriveCan irregularities. Stop spending on a bunch of meetings. We have all these meetings. They're worried about the meetings, and the conservatives who are booking these meetings are worried about the corruption and the loss of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars. The meetings have to cost less than the waste and Arrive scam, right? Like, you'd think. Jennifer says, oh, okay, so if it takes up too much time or too many meetings to look into something, NDP's Blake D doesn't want anything to do with it. Yeah, it's interesting that they're using kind of nonsense, hand-waving these things away. Oh, there's so many meetings. Canada famously said that we're really good at doing meetings, right? Like, we're bad at war, but we're really good at meetings. So Blake doesn't even want to do that, this guy. Let's talk about carbon taxes. Dan McTeague says, he's responding to Scott. Scott says, hey, Dan, can we chat about this on this week's Prices at the Pumps on Saltwire News and top 15 countries by carbon tax revenue? How much is the Canadian government bringing in carbon tax revenue? And we're second in the world after France, which surprised me, actually. I mean, not that much. I've watched Macron. But we're $7.8 billion. Wow. And this is 2023, according to the World Bank. And Dan McTeague says that was 2022 numbers, right, to be submitted to the World Bank for the 2023 World Bank publication. We've now passed France and are hitting Canadians at 2% of the global population with over 10% of the world's burden. Ask climate economists how this sobering reality squares with their per capita emissions angle to justify this fleecing. It is just theft. Just theft. This is one of my favorite games, one of my favorite things to do. Chrystia Freeland doesn't answer questions she doesn't like. And today she gets asked, hey, Chrystia Freeland, the federal government is going to subsidize Honda. How much are they going to subsidize Honda? How much money? by the federal government, and how many jobs? Do you think she answers the question? Oh no, of course she does not. This is a minute 42. I think we're probably going to listen to all of it because, well, it's just funny because she just keeps talking and talking without saying anything at all. So here's Chrystia Freeland being asked a question she does not like.
CBC News is now reporting that Honda Canada's investment in southwestern Ontario will include a $1 billion lithium-ion separator facility in Port Colborne. How much will the federal government be contributing specifically to this plant, and how many jobs and economic spin-offs for the Niagara region are you counting on in return?
Okay, thank you for that question. And one of the reasons that I am so happy to be here in St. Thomas is to see with my own eyes a community that has not too long ago experienced a really devastating economic blow, a community that knows what it is to lose jobs and to be feeling like you're in decline, to now be a community that is vigorously growing. It's wonderful to see, and you can see it on the street. And we really believe, when you think about what is our economic plan, our economic plan is fairness for every generation, with a particular focus on millennials and Gen Z. It is about investing in housing. It is about investing in making life more affordable. It is about investing in economic growth and doing all of that in a fiscally responsible way. And I think what you're seeing in St. Thomas with VW, jobs, a community growing a future, and at the same time social infrastructure like this amazing daycare center, to me that epitomizes our economic plan in action and what we need across the country.
Right, but she didn't answer the question. The question was how many jobs and how much money was invested by the feds. And she said, I love daycares. Thanks, Chrystia Freeland. That was not helpful at all. Naya is highlighting this. Learn about Trudeau's government heat pump program. It's not what you think it is. And so everybody's got these I Heart heat pumps, and they're doing a big rollout for these heat pumps. Stephen Gilbo says, together with the province of British Columbia, we are investing over $250 million to help British Columbians make their home less costly to heat and cool while cutting pollution. Learn how you can blah, 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 blah. And, they've got these, these t-shirts are going to end up at Value Village, right? You see these t-shirts all the time if you go to Value Village ever. And nobody buys them or anything to that effect. Nobody loves heat pumps, right? Barry Sharp says, will British Columbia stop exporting $2 billion worth of coal to China every year? And we do export a lot of coal. Right? Here's a Global News article from March 29th talking about our exports to China. China accounts for more than half the world's use of thermal coal, and India is almost 15%. And it says global coal use expanded in 2022, partly as Russian invasion of Ukraine led to a spike in gas prices. Hold on, there's a little bit that I want to show you. This part, I thought this was what I was just reading. The Liberals promised 3 years ago that all thermal coal exports will stop from Canada by 2030, but exports have risen almost 20% since that promise was made. So we've increased the exports of thermal coal to China by 20%, and we're going to turn that off any day now, right? Any day now, sure. I love heat pumps. Yeah, I'll give you a break, right? It's going to definitely happen. Not happening. Hello everyone, thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful